oil, olive oil. Ah! For those of you new to my channel, I thought I'd give a recap. We're some 31 episodes, is it? 32 episodes into the restoration of this lovely guitar. And for those of you who haven't been following from the beginning, and why not, I suggest you go back and watch a few of the early ones. I thought I'd give a quick recap. What we have here is a Dorso parlour guitar, D''ORSO, which was made in the late 19th century, the 1890s, in Markneukirchen in Germany. It's a pinned bridge, but unlike Spanish guitars, which are tied, despite it being pinned, it is intended for gut strings. And I suspect that the previous owner, one of the previous owners, had tried to put modern steel strings on this and had torn the bridge off. So I've made a new bridge which will be fitted on after I've done the finish. I've repaired a crack on the front and a crack on the back. I've re-glued the braces. I've put little cleats inside as well to reinforce where it cracked. But I've also added a bridge plate under the bridge because, tempting fate, I'm going to try and string this with steel strings, but I'm going to use silk and steel, which are low tension and in fact are pretty much the same tension as classical strings anyway. So hopefully it won't cause any problems, and it just seems appropriate on a pinned bridge. I've never seen a classical guitar with a pinned bridge. So it seems to make sense to me to use steel strings, and I prefer steel strings anyway. So let's call this a conversion. It's not entirely faithful restoration. It needed a new bridge plate anyway. The front of the guitar was very damaged underneath from use, and maybe because the steel strings pulled out. You can't really anchor steel strings against a lump of spruce. It's just too soft. That they may pull through, and that may be what contributed to the bridge pulling off. So I've been doing the finish on this, and I've put about 5 layers of coloured garnet shellac on. I say 5 layers, 5 applications, because all the layers merge into one really. That's the beauty of shellac. And I've put about 5 layers of clear shellac over the top of it. And I guess that's what you'd call bodying. I've just been putting on a thick 2-pound cut, building up the layers, trying to get a nice thick coating. And now I've got to the point where I'm going to be putting a much thinner layer of shellac on. And for the first time I'm going to be using oil, just a tiny little drop of olive oil to try and keep the pad moving, to lubricate it, because you don't want to have the pad sticking, and as the shellac dries it gets very sticky and it's very difficult to keep the pad moving, and it starts to drag and it roughs up the surface. So the idea with the oil is to keep the pad moving and keep it nice and smooth. And actually the oil also slows down the drying of the shellac, so it becomes a much gentler, more sort of polishing effect, rather than just building up the layers, although obviously I am going to be building up the thickness as I go. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this session. First of all, I'll just gently sand the surface with 1500 grit, being very careful about certain areas where in the past I've managed to take the finish off more or less. It's not completely even, the surface, and where the crack is, there's a slight crown there. So I've got to be very careful about sanding that in case I take the finish right off and go back down to the wood. I need to just level in a few places though, because I have been painting shellac on there's a couple of bits of tear out, and I've been painting shellac over the top to just try and fill in what is effectively a crack. It's not really a crack as such, but it's just a little bit of missing grain on the surface, and I've just been trying to get that level. So sand, and then we'll go on to the shellac with the oil, olive oil. Just going to tap the slightly raised spots first. Finger sand those. There's still a slight dip here. That's probably unavoidable, really. It's about as much as I'm prepared to do, sanding wise. Just going to go back over a couple of spots here. It's difficult to get right in close to the neck, but it's not particularly even. There's a lot more shellac around the neck because of the difficulties of getting in close. Looks a lot better. Now I'm going to be very carefully just going over this part. Extremely carefully. Your fingers really are the best guide with this. It's what the eye doesn't pick up, the fingers certainly do. It's just a very slight raised part there where I've just done a little bit of filling. Now up until now I've been getting my cotton wool fad and I've been dipping it in the shellac and then wrapping it, and that acts like a filter, and for very good reason, because using garnet shellac there are a lot of impurities in it, and you don't want those impurities ending up on the surface of the guitar. There are little bits and pieces of tree, I imagine, in it. What I'm going to do here though is I'm going to put the shellac and alcohol straight on the pad, and then a tiny little drop of oil and onto the guitar. This shellac is very clear, there's very few impurities in it, so I can get away with it that way. It just seems a more convenient way of doing it. And the lid is stuck. Excuse me while I struggle with the lid. So, get my shellac, and I'm going to put, I guess 20. I really don't know here. I'm learning as I go, but I'm going to put maybe 20 drops on here. And I'm going to put the lid on to save it all evaporating away. and similar amount of alcohol. And again, make sure we keep the top on. And I'm just going to tap it on the back of my hand just to mix it all up. Don't know how this is going to go on because it's a brand new pad, and even when I'm not diluting it down, it's been difficult working with brand new pads. And magic ingredient. One drop of oil. 2 for luck. I have a feeling this pad will be too dry, but let's give it a go. No, that's going on quite well. I'm really getting the benefit of the alcohol here. It's very noticeably different to the previous layers because there's so much more alcohol in this. And it's gliding beautifully, but not really applying much shellac. And in fact, almost immediately I've lost the smell of the alcohol. I think I might recharge my pad already. I think most of this is just soaking into the pad. I had the vapour trail of the alcohol initially. It's disappeared almost immediately. Yeah, I think I'm going to recharge and go again. I've recharged with the same amount as before, so let's give it another go. And again, I'm not really getting any shellac going on, I don't think. I think the pad's so new it's drying out almost instantly. So let's go again. I think normally one charge of shellac would last a lot longer than this, but on a fresh pad, fresh rubber, maybe not. I don't honestly know whether I need to keep putting more olive oil on it, but I am anyway. And I should probably have patted it down first before putting the oil on, so that the oil's on the top rather than soaked in, but let's go. I'll start over here this time, so that it hopefully gets a little bit more. Yeah, I've got the vapour trail this time. This feels lovely and smooth and silky. It's not like the sticky experience of applying pure 12-pound cut with no oil. 12-pound cut, did I say? 2-pound cut. Did I just say 12? You can't really see this on the video, but what I'm seeing here is, at the moment, a very slight satin finish still. It's not quite got the gloss back from the... It is quite glossy, but there's just a hint of satin about it. Maybe this is a result of the oil on the surface, but I really feel it's going to need lots and lots of layers now to really build up a high polish, and to flatten out the front a little bit. Fill in some of the little pits, but whether or not the pits will actually fill in using thin shellac like this, I'm not sure. Let's go again. Mixed up first this time. And again, one spot of olive oil. Initially this was a little bit sticky, but it's smoothed out as I'm going along, so I don't know whether that's something to do with the olive oil being distributed around, but it's now feeling nice and silky smooth again. This is really tiring my arm. As silky smooth as this feels, if you start going backwards and forwards, that momentary stopping of the pad at the one end, you really do feel it stick. So just keep it moving in swirls or figures of 8, I guess. I'm not so good at figures of 8. It's like a tongue twister for my hand. Oh, maybe. I think that's dry again. Not really seeing any vapor trail of alcohol. I think I'm just rubbing an oily pad on a dry surface of a guitar. It's amazing how you can be shellacking something and it's dry. Let's go again. I've given you a different view to see if you can see the vapor trail as I'm working. Hello, you can see me, my reflection, hello! And maybe see how it dries out as I'm going. And I don't know whether you can see the finger marks on the surface of the guitar. When I tapped it, there are a few finger marks. Doesn't really matter because they'll all polish out on this coat. Here we go. And just like before, it feels a little bit sticky on first application, and then it just eases in as I go. Of course, I won't really know how much of this you can see until I edit the video. My arm is going to ache so much tomorrow. I'm still getting a vapor trail, but just a lot less than when I started. And most of it is probably just oil smears. Get the pad a bit tighter. Squeeze what I can out of it. Pressing quite firmly to burnish it down. But I think I'm going to do another coat anyway, so I'll do a final burnish after we've done it all. I'm mumbling. Stop mumbling. I'll try with yet another angle, see if you can see the vapor trail. And just as before, it's a bit sticky to begin with. Not quite sure why that would be. Unless it's just that the pad dries out a little bit between charging it and putting it on the guitar, and then as I'm pressing it, the alcohol and shellac come through. But that's nice and smooth now, and not sticky like it was to begin with. Really is difficult to get in here. There's so little shellac going on, maybe I'll have more luck with my next session where I'm using a used pad. Yeah, there's no vapor trail now, so we'll recharge. I don't know whether you can see this, I've got some little black flecks of dust, microscopic little bits, well not microscopic because I can see them, but very tiny little bits of black fluff caught up in the pad, and I think it's from the blackout cloth I've been trying to use. The lighting in here can be very harsh because the sun is directly on the window and gets very hot, so I've been I've tried blacking out the window because I get plenty of light anyway. It's a conservatory. I'm getting plenty of light through the roof, but I think it's shedding a lot of fluff, so it's probably not the ideal circumstances to be doing French polishing. Recharged. Maybe the last one for this session. That was a bit suspicious. Did you see that lump of cotton wool come out then? I wonder where that came from. I haven't worn through the pad. Very strange. Where did it go? How strange. That, I believe, is the end of the session. I'm so pleased with how this is going. There is an argument that I could just stop here because I haven't got the surface perfect. You can see the grain, you can see some of the little bits of tear out, but I think I want to carry on. I want a nice lustrous deep finish, I think, so we'll keep going, but it's looking lovely. Oh, so pleased.